Welcome to the Pursuit of Manliness podcast, where we are vigorously equipping men to pursue biblical manliness.
All right, let's get into this. All right, back to the podcast. Clint is killing us. I don't know how this is going to go. So
I'm sorry. Cut that. I was in my head thinking about something. Sorry.
Yeah, if you are if you live in Clint's neighborhood, there's a chance that he's bumming your Wi-Fi right now. So just turn it off real quick and turn it back on, and then we'll know before this is over if he's stealing your Wi-Fi or not. Matthew 4:23.
Yeah.
We've been plugging along. We finally made it to the end of chapter 4. It's only taken us about 8 or 9 episodes, but here we are. Jesus going into Galilee, teaching in the synagogue, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. Man, it does not get any simpler than that, right? Proclaim the gospel of the kingdom. Rob, any thoughts from this text before we start to really dig into it?
Yeah, I mean, it gives us a clear picture of what we should be doing. And the gospel is simple. I don't think we need to make it complicated. And so I think sometimes we worry about how that's going to come across or how we're going to share it. The gospel is very simple. The consequences or the outcome of whether the gospel is accepted or not is huge. That's eternal. That has eternal importance. But for us, we should just be doing it. I'm always found interesting that the crowd, they brought all these people around. I'm not sure they saw even then what was happening to them eternally, because they were asking for demons to be removed and healing to be taking place. I don't think they quite got it. They saw that he was this powerful man, powerful prophet, however they were viewing him. But I don't think many of these people still saw him as the Messiah, because they were asking him to do things for them physically. And really what he was there to do and what his mission was to help your soul. And so I always found that text as we moved to 24 and 25 kind of interesting of why the crowds grew at that point.
We talked about Galilee 8-9 weeks ago, or I don't know, 8-9 episodes ago, something like that. Just the importance of Galilee, and I'll probably hit it on a couple more times before we get out of here. But I go back to this. Galilee was not a place that if you were going to write the script of how the Messiah would arrive and what he would do and how he would call people to himself and what this proclamation of a kingdom looked like, Galilee is not the place. Like, I think here in America, there are certain places that you would say, like, there's a new sports franchise and they're going to put it in, Sioux City, Iowa, or something. You're like, what? Why would you? Are there any people there? Is there anything there? Like, there's just certain places that you hear. And I'm not picking on Sioux City, Iowa. That's God's country. I understand that. But I'm just saying that you would think New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco or these big name places. And so you think, well, Jesus is showing up. He's going where the big dogs are, and he's going to overthrow these kingdoms, and God has this upside down way of doing things. It's narrow road type stuff, right? Like, few find it. It's difficult. The way is straight, those types of things. And so I think, Jesus told his disciples, go to Galilee. They thought change of plans once he died. I think we all have a Galilee, and that Galilee can be a person. Maybe there's a person in your life that God's like, I'm calling you to share the love of Jesus with that person. You're like, I don't think so. I don't think that. you got the wrong guy. It could be an actual location. It could be a people group. It could be, I was talking to someone the other day, and he was talking about praying and just kind of like trying to be quiet. And God put the name of a country on his heart. Like, so he started praying for that country. And after so many years, like, he now gets to minister to the people in that country. But that was not on his mind, obviously, when he was praying at that time. So I think we all have a Galilee. It's just a matter of, will we be obedient to go there? And I think the obedience to Galilee starts with one obedient step at a time. You're not going to get there if you can't do the small basic things. You can't read your Bible. Don't go on a mission trip. Like, wrong deal. Start with the book, right? If you can't serve in your church, don't try to think you're going into ministry. I meet people, I'm going into ministry. Where do you volunteer? I don't. Nah, you're not going into ministry. You don't understand how this works. Like, you need to clean some toilets for a few weeks and then tell me about going into ministry. You need to go visit the sick and shut-ins. You need to go visit the person who tells you everything you did was wrong. You need the person that tells you the volume's too loud. Like, visit them for a few weeks. Then let me know if you still feel called. That's a different call at that point.
Well, even in ministry, we have our comfort zones. I just got back from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I did cowboy church. Well, that's a comfort zone, and it's a cup filler. But as you said, okay, you shared Jesus, good, okay, great. But what if what if I was called to San Francisco? What if I was called, or even to share with somebody who just got a very different lifestyle, very different mindset, very different view? That may be exactly what God's leading me to do. And it's easy to go, ah, they're from Galilee. Let somebody from Galilee share that. Well, God may choose you. I mean, God chose lots of people to go do things to go to places that they weren't comfortable. Told Abraham to get up and move. Took Moses from Midian back to Egypt. So all throughout the Bible, he put his people who were a little bit underdogs in uncomfortable positions where he could get the glory by empowering them to do his will.
I think that's right, Rob. And I would say too, I think, in zooming out, we need to also acknowledge that God's will is not bound by our expectations and what we expect him to call us to do and what our desires are and what our inclinations are. I was having this conversation with my wife not too long ago about um, feeling called, feeling tugged by the Holy Spirit to do something, to serve His will, to serve, be a part of His plan in some capacity. And it was this realization of, I don't know what it is. I just want to be obedient, whatever it is. So, we've taken those beginning baby steps of, just saying yes to whatever it is in the church, the local church, because that is the bride of Christ. And if we're not serving in our local church, we're not using our spiritual gifts that God's given us. Personally, I still don't know what my spiritual gift is. I'll figure it out eventually. I'm not worried about it because I'm just going to continue being obedient and continue to serve in whatever capacity I'm needed. I'm just here to help. I don't know what I'm good at, probably nothing, but I'm trying to glorify God and just be obedient to serve in whatever capacity is needed. And I think that's what those beginning steps of obedience look like before God even reveals your spiritual gifts to you, whether it be to teach, whether it be to prophesy, whatever it is. Not everyone's called to be preachers, but we all are called to serve in some way.
I think, Luke, you kind of hit it. Man, a couple of years ago, and I kind of felt the inclination I might be called towards a more, at least part-time ministry job. Um, I tried to make the commitment. If church asks, I will say yes. And because how do you know what your spiritual gifts are if you're not serving? You don't know what necessarily God has strengthened you in and where you're weak unless you're trying. If you're just looking at just reading about it in a book, not the Bible, but just studying it and not doing it, it's like trying to I'm just going to practice football, but I'm never going to play. Well, I don't know if I'm good or not until I start to play. And so I think just getting in that service mindset is huge because God will reveal to you what he strengthened you to do well.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody in scripture that when God called them to do something, they said, it's about time. Like I've been waiting on, like, are you serious? We've been holding tryouts back here for my team. It's about, I mean, most of them went, you got the wrong guy. Like, I don't think so, and I've done this long enough now. I get to talk to some people who are thinking about going into ministry or whatever, want to follow Jesus, man, want to share their faith. And it's usually the people who don't feel called or don't feel equipped to do it. Like they feel the nudging, but they would be more than okay with God. But if you use somebody else, I am more than okay with that. And I think that's the people God uses the most. When someone says, I'm really good up in front of people on a stage, I'm like, nah, you might not be the right guy. Because let me tell you what, being up front of people on a stage, it ain't that hot. It ain't that great. I don't care what the size of the crowd is. So, and if that is what you're after, and some people really think that's the goal, the coming down off that stage is a crash and burn. I'm telling you, we see it every day with people who have stages and book deals and conference speaking and all that. But it's like playing the lottery. You always hear about people who play the lottery and they end up miserable. You're like, but I'd like to find out, like I'd like to find out if I ever slip on the floor at Walmart and get a bunch of money, like I'd like to find out what it's like to have all that just piddle money to waste away. I think the key here is are you willing to allow God to cultivate, till up that soil of your heart? Because I believe for all of us, not just the guys on this call right here, but for everyone that's listening, God is always preparing something in advance. It could be tomorrow, it could be in the next 30 minutes. But if we don't get the character right here, if we don't get the lessons right now, it's never going to happen. And I think there's a lot of us, God is just saying, I'm just waiting for you to be obedient. I'm just waiting. And it's as simple as what Jesus says here. He's preaching the gospel. This thing's about the gospel. I mean, you don't have to be a valedictorian to figure out the gospel's pretty clear, man. And that was Jesus' priority. Just get on with the gospel. Man, no question, the longest running sponsor of the Pursuit of Manliness podcast has been Darkwater Woodwork, darkwaterkc.com. It's been a privilege to get to know Doug over a number of years. I remember the very first men's retreat when it was all over. Everybody was going out to eat in different places. I came back to my garage and just hung out. Little did I know, a few minutes later, Doug would show up and we sat here and talked for hours. Doug is a high caliber man of God. He loves Jesus and he makes great beard care products. I just sent Doug a message and I said, hey, what do you want me to make sure they know about in this promo? He said, please tell them about the Storm Front Beard Balm and Oil. Here's what I know. These scents are only available for a limited time. So now you are without excuse. So if you go to today's show notes, click the link. That will let Doug know you heard of him or heard of this offer through the Pursuit of Manliness. Use the discount code. You'll save money. You support Doug, who does all kinds of good work with Darkwater KC, and you'll get some high quality beard balm and beard oil.
I had a guy in one of my men's groups who's relatively new to the Bible, and it's his second language. So he's reading a German Bible and an English Bible, and he's trying to make sense of all that. And he said, I'm never going to get this thing figured out. And I said, well, none of us will on this side of the grave. But I asked him, I said, is there anything you're unsure about the gospel, about how you become saved? And he's like, no, not at all. I said, that just proves that that's simple. You are already ready to go share that with somebody, even a year in your faith. You know, I always think about the woman at the well, like she has this encounter with Jesus. She runs into her village, and really all she says is, that's Jesus. There's really no great, testimony to it. And the text tells us many believe because of her witness. And so, if we're just willing and faithful and obedient, God will take care of that, the belief part. We just need to go point and say, that's Jesus. And sometimes that's simple enough.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I often tell my youth boys, you can't sell what you don't have. Okay, we can't spread the gospel if it's not penetrated and redeemed our own soul. However, thankfully for my case, what does it require? The faith of a child and the understanding of a child. And I'm thankful for that, because there for a long time, or maybe a decent amount of time, once I came to the faith, I thought, okay, I've got probably 10 years of learning worth or ahead of me, and then I can spread the gospel, because I have to be an expert on this thing. I have to figure every single thing out about this before I can talk to anybody about Jesus. And then one of those light switch moments happened. Was like, I'll be learning until the Lord calls me home. I've just got to do it. I've just got to share. So that was one of those, like, it was a weight lifting off my shoulders moment of, there is no saving knowledge. There is no saving nugget of information that I'm going to uncover. It's the gospel. The faith of a child is what's required. Go spread it.
But Luke, as you were talking, man, I'm glad you went instead of me, because I need some more seconds to find the verse I was looking for. And it's in Mark 5. We're talking about, I used to think, the disciples had 3 years with Jesus and they didn't get it, right? They didn't get it till after the resurrection. Then it was like, aha, now we get it. But they were still trying to figure it out. I mean, even Peter is confronted by Paul, where Paul's like, hey, buddy, you're trying to play both sides of the fence here. So they spent the rest of their life, as you're talking about, trying to get it. But I was looking at Mark 5. This is Jesus healing the man with the demon. And this guy's in a bad way. And so Jesus tells the demon, go into these pigs. The pigs go over. The herdsmen are like, they're begging Jesus to depart from the region. One of the saddest things you can see in Scripture. So the guy was begging Jesus that he could go with him. I don't blame him. I mean, first of all, these people are terrible. They kept me bound in shackles. They didn't give a rip about me. They want you to leave. You're the only one that showed me mercy or grace. This is a terrible place to live. And Jesus tells him no. And he tells him, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. Just tell them your testimony. You could be the greatest apologist. Ravi Zacharias was a pretty great apologist, wasn't he? And then you find out after he passed, there's some stories that you think, I hope that ain't true. But seems to be like there might have been everything. Perception wasn't reality. You might be the one of the most articulate with the Greek or the Hebrew or whatever. Great. There's no special section in heaven for the Greek speaking students over there. It's as simple as go and tell. And you don't even got to be articulate. You're like, I'm only telling what I know. And like for us, we all have different friend groups. You telling your friend group, like, all I'm doing is telling you what the Lord's done for me. I don't need to argue that. I don't need to argue the transformation. There'll be enough of it, even for the greatest cynics, that they have a preconceived idea about Christians, and you're going to prove them wrong. I mean, the Paul's letters talk about that. Do such a great job that they have to give glory to God. And so understand the gospel, live it out, try to do your best, say you're sorry when you're sorry. But just like that guy, zero schooling, 0 credit hours. He's never attended a Sunday school class. He doesn't even have our daily bread pamphlet. All he has is what the Lord has done for him. Jesus said, go. That is sufficient.
Man, that makes me very happy right there, because for a knucklehead like me who can't get the internet to work right to be able to be on here, you know, sometimes I'm like, man, I'm on here with these other guys who got some good education and stuff. And I'm just an old roughneck over here trying to make sense of the Bible. But you know what? God uses me how he uses me, with all my way with words, not very great with them, but you know what? My experiences and they end up helping other people out that, somebody very eloquent words couldn't help them out. I was at church the other night and we had a guy come and speak, and I shouldn't have been thinking this, but he was very well spoken, very soft spoken, and he's been doing it for a long time. He's been to 33 countries, 48 states. And I'm like, this guy has probably went straight to college, never worked a hard day in his life. And I'm over here listening to this, and I shouldn't have been thinking that, and realized that in the middle of me thinking, but I was still able to get something out of it. But if it would have been more of a blue collar type guy, that probably would have helped out a little bit better for me.
But I think God truly knows who to send into different places. I mean, like we were talking about, he knew where to send Moses. He knew where to take Abraham. And when he wants you, he knows he's going to know who to send to get you. So it might not be for everybody. It might not be the guy in a suit and tie and with 14 degrees, because that might not resonate. It might be the guy who shows up in overalls and there's dirt everywhere, and he's got a cut down his arm. I think what Jarrett said, though, is really important, is that nobody can argue. People can argue apologetics. We can get into a big debate, and we can get into a big back and forth. Nobody can argue with what God through Christ has done in your life. I mean, he took you from sinner to saved. And so that process, nobody can argue with that. They can not accept it. They can go, I don't believe it. But they can't argue with you because you experienced it, and when you share it, they've got to make a decision on that.
Men, we've made it to August. That means we're back to school, just about back to football, and we are just about back to the men's retreat. I know it's August, but this is the last full month of promoting the men's retreat. And if I could be honest with you, I do not enjoy promoting things. I don't think I'm a great salesman, but I feel like I need to do it. There's always a guy who at the last minute hears about the retreat and says, hey, I want to be in on it. It's happened in Tribe for the last 8 years. There's always someone on the last day who just heard about it. So I want to keep talking about it. I want to let you know registration closes Sunday, September 14th. I am so glad when registration closes. Not that I don't want more guys coming to the retreat, just that the promotion period is over and we can get on with the retreat. Now, it has to close on the 14th because I want to make sure everything is ordered, everything is in place. We got all of our ducks in a row before all you guys show up here in Indianapolis. So if you go to the website, thepursuitofmanliness.com, you can find the retreat. It's in the gear store. There's a lot of information. I even have the tentative schedule listed there. Some guys want to know, hey, what time do I need to be there? What time can I get out of there? There's things all weekend long. So if you want to stay all the way to church on Sunday, you are more than welcome to do that. Men do that every year, but we just want you to get to the retreat for $45. We're going to feed you. We get times of worship, study. You get a shirt. You're going to get more than $45 worth, I promise. The only hiccup is this. We don't house you. You're more than welcome to camp out on the property. Some people bring their RVs or they camp out in their car. You can stay in an Airbnb. There's tons of them in the Indianapolis area. Stay in a hotel, whatever you want to do. That's your call, but we just want you to get here. Reminder, Sunday, September 14th, registration closes. I hope to see you Friday and Saturday, October 3rd and 4th. Let's add it to Sunday too. And Sunday, October 5th. We hope to see you then. As you guys are talking, I go back to this story. I've shared it before, but when I was starting to feel the stirring to be in ministry, my wife and I were living at my in-laws' house, and we lived in their basement as a whole deal. But my father-in-law, a preacher for 40, 50 years, had a landline. So landlines are always on. You can't say do not disturb. They're always disturbing. And so his phone went off all the time. And I remember one night being there. It was late. I think there was a football game on, raining. You know how it is at the end of the day. You just want to shut it down. You're done. Eat a big bowl of ice cream or something, and phone call. There's some people at emergency that got to go to Iowa City. Now, Iowa City is about an hour and a half north, whatever, from where we live. And so, but they ain't got any money for gas. They ain't got, so he's going to meet him at a gas station. He's going to fill him up, get him set, get him on. So I go with him. It's one of those pouring down rains. You know how it is. We got the defrost on with the window down a little bit because you can't decide if I'm falling. It's just a crummy night, So he gets out and he's going to fill up their gas, but he's also going to check the oil. He's going to do all the things that like a dad would do, right? I see these people walk in, they come back out with like Funyuns and beef jerkies and 32-ounce sodas. I mean, they got arm in arm. And I thought to myself, nope, I'm not built for this. No, because I know I'll say something. To this day, I would still say something. I like to say I'm better than what I am. But when he got back to the truck, I said, now you tell me how you just did. How did you just, and he gave me a little, just real, he said, man, it's always right to do right. If maybe that's the blessing they need. What do I care? If they, like his mindset was, what do I care if they pull a fast one over on me or they, bad with money or lied or whatever. And there's still a lot of the flesh in me that says no. Like I like to say I'd be beyond that, but I think that's the power of the gospel of saying, you know what? It doesn't matter. Not everything matters. And if everything matters, then nothing matters. So trying to figure out what absolutely does matter, then everything else is pretty much negotiable at that point.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's one of the things that one of the fruits of the Spirit, one of the things that we can point to and say, hey, Jesus has redeemed my soul. Look at what I'm able to do through the Spirit, because my flesh wouldn't have even answered the call. That's one of those things where we can only point to a supernatural, if I can say it, a supernatural new person, a new creation, because it's only through a servant's heart. It's only through the power of the gospel that has given me a softened heart and turned my heart of stone into a heart of flesh that I'm able to serve these people that Jesus died for. Whether or not we are not called to be life coaches in order to spread the gospel, especially people like you, Jarrett, that are in ministry full time. You are a shepherd. You are not a life coach. You're not dedicated to holding someone's hand their entire life. You're spreading the gospel and serving others. That's at the end of the day, like you said, where do you draw the line about doing what's right and doing what makes sense?
The only thing that we need to get right is Jesus. If we can get Jesus right, then everything else should fall into place. We should be, it should make us a better husband, a better father, better coworker, friend. Of course, a better disciple. It'll give us the ability to be stronger, to be not afraid to go out and tell people about Jesus. Because why wouldn't you want to go and tell everybody about Jesus that you know? after everything that he's done for you in your life.
Jared, you're talking about that story, with the giving people gas and watching them come out with all kinds of goodies. And I think we all have kind of a visceral reaction to that, if we're really honest. And I heard a man, he's somewhat popular. I don't remember his name on the internet. And he talked about a story where he was debating a guy. And the guy was essentially an atheist. And he asked him something about suicide. And he kind of ignored that aspect of it because he wanted to win the battle. He wanted to win the debate. And it came to realize that person's bride had taken her life. And he was honestly curious about what the Bible said about that. And he goes, I really missed an opportunity to reach that guy because I wanted to go win the debate. And so, like, the gospel took a secondary place to winning an apologetic debate or some kind of, back and forth seesaw thing. And that just really convicted me because, like, in your case, you could have jumped those guys and go, man, y'all are thieves. Like, come up here to give you gas money, and you're eating ding dongs. But just ignoring that and filling up their tank and being Jesus, like, who knows what seed that planted down the line? You might not know. Maybe you do know. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe we'll know in heaven. But that was a Christ-like move. And I think we got to put the gospel first and not these other things that we can get competitive with and get it in front of the gospel.
I think here's the important part we don't want to miss, at least for this episode, is he preached the gospel. So he's going into these places where they would have habitually heard the exact same message every week, every year, every season, and so you would do what your rabbi did. So if they taught a certain way, it was almost an honorable thing to teach like your rabbi did. And so as you would sit in there, they would leave windows of time for, like, anybody traveling through got a good word for us. We see this with Paul, right? Anybody got a good word? Paul's like, I got a great word. Next thing you know, they're throwing rocks at his head. Like, we didn't like that word, different word. Well, Jesus just sharing the word. And I didn't look in the chronological. I think it's pretty close. This is in Luke 4. So the same idea. So Matthew's giving you a summary. Luke 4 is giving you a summary. In Luke 4, he's in his hometown. He's in the group with the people carrying out Funyuns and beef jerky and all the things. And what happens is when they heard these things, verse 28 of Luke chapter 4, all in the synagogue. Now, when I read all, I assume that means everybody. So all means all, especially for Dr. Luke. They were filled with wrath. Now, I've said some things when I teach, I could tell right away. Face is not happy with that. I say that your house has a smell. Some people cannot understand what I'm trying to say. They think I'm being offensive. No, everybody's house has a smell. I digress. They were filled with wrath. They were so filled with wrath, they rose up and drove him out of the town and brought him to the bow of the hill on which the town was built so that they could throw him down the cliff. They said, we'll show you out, sir. I've never been shown out quite like the time when I wouldn't take a COVID test. They showed me out. I could figure out where the door is. They said, let me show you where the door is. We're going to heave you over the side of the cliff. But passing through their midst, he went away. How about that? He's one of their own. He comes and he shares the gospel, filled with wrath. Some things never change.
Thank you again for tuning into the Pursuit of Manliness podcast. Please like, comment, and share the show. Also, if you would leave an iTunes review, that would be greatly appreciated. And remember, keep pursuing biblical manliness.